Good morning. Good afternoon. It is afternoon. Let's make sure you all can hear me. Hi, Michelle. Thank you very much. I will miss you today and have a good work day. Hope to catch up with you soon. All right, I'm gonna give it a couple of minutes. I hope you've been well, Michelle. If I can move my chair. My chair's not moving. Okay, forget it. All right. Happy Sunday. Give folks some time. I see some eyes. I see 15 eyes. I don't see anybody in the chat, but all right. Happy to see you guys here. I hope you all can hear me. I think you can. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Thank you. Happy to be well. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Travel Dee Dee says it's her first time here. Welcome. Glad to have you. Happy Sunday to you. Hi, Diane. Good afternoon. Great to be seen. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, let me do my kickoff and then we'll get started. Hopefully, you all, I'm sure by now you'd let me know if you couldn't hear me. Hi, Key. Okay, good. Thank you. Um, can't stay. Key. Okay, understand. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were here and able to join at least for a few minutes. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to do my kickoff and then I will get started. Let's do this. I think I'm ready. Okay. All right. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your location. My name is Jewel Pearson. This is Miss Bohemian Soul TV. This segment is Creating Home, a Tiny House series. The series is Creating Home, a Tiny House series. And then the segment that we're going to kick off is one of three, which is our community conversation. I do offer What's Your Question, where I'm answering frequently asked tiny house questions. And then we have the conversations on intimate spaces, where I am interviewing someone in or around the tiny house movement, and we're listening to them share their journey and asking questions of them, so that others can be inspired by folks that are in and around the tiny house movement. As I introduce myself, I like to say that I built a kind of fancy tiny house in 2015. And since that time, I have shared my journey to hopefully inspire others who are interested in the movement. I do offer coaching and consultations. And once this video goes live, you will be able to find links to schedule with me in the video description. And as I'm doing that, I like to serve up a lot of representation along the way. I want us to see ourselves in this movement. So I hope that you'll find something that inspires you here, and you'll continue to show up and learn about tiny houses and all the good things. All right. Happy Sunday. Key says she can't stay. Happy Sunday, Patricia. Welcome. Hi, Cynthia. Happy Sunday to you. Thank you. Happy to be seen. Hi, B. Happy Sunday. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hello, D Harp. Hi, hi, hi. Welcome. That's a new name. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Hi, Cammie. Welcome. Hi, Judith. Glad to have you here. And yes, happy Father's Day to everyone. And happy Juneteenth if you're celebrating this weekend. It's not until next Wednesday, but I know some of the celebrations are happening. So happy Juneteenth to everybody. Hi, Sandra. Happy to have you here. Good to see your name in the chat. All right, so I will kick off. Oh, I've done my kickoff, just kind of talking today. So Many of you know I did have surgery. It's been 2 Tuesdays ago now. Happy Sunday to you as well. Absolutely, Sandra. I did have surgery 2 Tuesdays ago, so this past Tuesday was a week post op for me. For those of you who are new to the channel, I've shared this journey along the way. Thank you, Key. Like, comment, subscribe, all of the things. I think I missed that in my introduction, so thank you, Key. I shared that I had a mini stroke, or TIA is the formal name for it, transgenic something stroke, in on December the 23rd. And so as part of that, they discovered that I have a small hole in my heart. I had a small hole in my heart. And the surgery that I had 2 Tuesdays ago was to put a device in my heart to close the opening. So I had a small opening between the right and left chambers. And I've also shared that 1 in 4 people have that. It is, we all have it when we are in the womb. It is how our heart operates when we are in the womb. But then once we are born, that skin closes up that hole, except for it doesn't often do that for 1 in 4 people. And so it is common that people will have a hole in your heart, but you really won't know about it until you suffer heart disease or have some type of heart challenge, or maybe have a stroke like I did. So what happened was a blood clot formed somewhere in my body, and kind of with the perfect storm, that blood clot went through that hole in my heart and caused me to have a mini stroke. And so gratefully, so with a mini stroke, you have all of the symptoms of a stroke. You experience everything of a stroke, but then for the most part, you don't have those lasting physical symptoms. It is if you get help. A mini stroke is also a warning that a larger stroke is coming if you don't get help and then deal with what's going on. And so I have been in this journey of dealing with that since December. So this 6-month journey, and then the surgery, like I said, was to close it up. Hello. The surgery, and I've also shared this, like as I've been in this journey, my share with the group has been really in learning to, or making sure that you're advocating for yourself. And so the surgery was another reminder of that for me, for sure, because there was so much of minimizing. They say the surgery is minimally invasive in that they go in through your groin, they go through a vein with this tool and implant this device in your heart. And so it is minimally invasive in that they are not cracking open your chest to do this work. So yes, minimally invasive in that way. But they also kind of position it as, and I've shared with some of my friends, it was like, it was nothing. It's not an overnight stay associated with it. They like, we do this and then you go home. And they kind of position it as it is like minor surgery. And I'm here to say it absolutely is not. Minor in that, yes, they go in through your groin, and so you don't have to deal with um, if they were having to open your chest to do this. But then the back end of it that I don't feel like was explained very well is that there's this strange device in your body, and your body is automatically going to go into kind of a fight mode, because there's something in there that should not be, as far as your body knows. And so that is something that I don't think is discussed, or at least it wasn't discussed well by my care team in advance. And so I ended up with chills and a fever. Again, my body is trying to fight something that it knows is foreign. Ended up in ER the very next day because of the chills and the fever. I had a low grade fever, but it was still a lot, and the chills. Um, and so, and then there have been so many other things that have happened that is really explained by the fact that my body is trying to adjust to this thing that is part of my body. And so um my heart rate has been racing for about a week now, which is again like a fight or flight mode. My heart recognizes there's something here that shouldn't be. It is irritating the lining of my heart because it's not supposed to be there. And my heart is actually doing what it should be doing to protect me from this foreign object. So I couldn't understand why I was like stressed, like feeling stressed, feeling amped, almost like if you take monster drinks, or I'm not a coffee drinker, but maybe I imagine if you drink way too much coffee and you're just hyped up and you're anxious and that's the way I felt. And I couldn't understand why I was feeling that way, like I was wound up really tight. And I'm trying to relax. And so that was on my list to ask about when I went for my post-op. This thing in my heart also started making my heart, um, my beat different because again it is um, adjusting to something there that hasn't been there before, which was really I don't know the word, and I'm going to come back to why I don't know my word. It threw me off that my heartbeat was the rhythm was different because that is one of the things that I had noticed about a month before I even had the mini stroke, and so to be experiencing this weird rhythm. Or these flutters, as I kind of explain it, these things, this stuff happening in my chest was made me nervous as well. And so that was on my list. I also, what else was I experiencing? Um, when I just couldn't think of a word. So one of the things that I've shared with this group is that I recovered, like, so when I experienced the mini stroke, I lost complete use of the left side of my body. All of the symptoms of a stroke that if you follow me on social media, I've shared all of them because I knew the symptoms of a stroke because I assumed that I'd need them for elders in my family, and it ended up being the thing that I needed for myself. But I had BFAST is the acronym for the stroke, and all of it relates to the things that are going to happen and when you lose control of the left side of your body. With that, like losing control of the left side of my body also kind of impacted the right side because I just couldn't get myself. I was very aware in my brain, but I couldn't get my body function to do anything, and I was like that for like 45 minutes. Once that broke, though, I did regain all of the physical function of my body. But one of the things that has been, and so as a part of the stroke, this clot goes to your brain. In massive strokes, that's how you see people they have brain damage, and that's why they have a lot of existing physical challenges, speech, and all of those things. With the TIA, there is minimal, and quote fingers because it's going to affect everybody differently. But there's minimal brain damage with the TIA, but there is some with a clot going to your brain. And so for me, the impact has been effective. It affected me in my memory. So my short term memory is different now, and also my word recall. My word recall is off. I can the word can be right there at the tip of my tongue, and I just cannot get it together to bring the word forward. And that had actually been improving, but one of the things that I've learned it since my surgery is a word called recrudence, which again was on my list because right after the surgery, on Tuesday, that Tuesday evening, I realized I was missing my words again. And so I started paying attention to it, and it was again very disconcerting that I can't think of words, and it was worse than it had been, like leading up to the surgery. So all of these things that I have on my list, I find out. So recrudence is the word. As I expressed these my 1 week follow up, I expressed what was happening, and as soon as I started saying, like, I this is something that had happened as a result of the stroke, had kind of gone away, but it's back. She immediately tells me recrudence, and recrudence is stroke-like symptoms that come back as a result of, and it can be several things: anesthesia or medicines that are used for sedation. Benza something is one of the main sedation medicines. Um, so for a person who has experienced a stroke, um, anesthesia, sedation, stress, and there's some other things on the list, can cause recrudence, or the recurrence of symptoms that may have previously gone away or improved. You might see them reappear, or you might see them worsen. Recrudence impacts women more, and it also impacts African Americans more. So two check boxes for me. That's not anything the doctor had mentioned prior to the surgery. They hadn't mentioned the fact that my body was going to fight this device, and I did see somebody ask a question as to whether um, is this permanent? And I think you're talking about the device. Yes. So the device. So with this hole, in the hole that I had in my heart that allowed blood to go across the right and left chambers, this device, blood should not be going across. It should go out of the chamber and then go out and come back in on the outside. So this device that they implant stays in your heart. It is permanent, and at this point now, like within a week, body tissue, heart tissue, should start covering this device. And so it should eventually become part of my heart, with skin and tissue covering it. And it should stay in place to continue to close that opening or close that small hole. And the size of the device that's implanted is determined by the size of the hole that you have in your heart. But anyway, so all of these things that I learned, so Googling, and then having this conversation a week after surgery, I learned that recrudence is something which I, will have to deal with anytime I have to have surgery, or if I'm under stress, which I'm working really hard not to, just because of my heart um, challenges. And even if I didn't have stress, it's good for us. Um, and then knowing that some of these things that are happening, like the heart racing, so they wanted to immediately prescribe something to slow the my heartbeat down. I don't really want to add another prescription medicine to my repertoire. So I am trying some holistic and some natural options first, and if it doesn't slow, because it should eventually slow as my body adjusts to the device anyway. But if that doesn't happen, and I've kind of given myself like the next 3 weeks, if that doesn't happen within the next 3 weeks, then I would likely consider a prescription medicine, but I'm hoping to not have to. Um, the word recall is just something that, like, post the stroke, I had started doing games on my phone to kind of exercise my brain. The challenge is that even as you get older, word recall, memory, all of those things are something that you have to deal with. So then I add, and then as a woman, once you start adding menopause and post-menopause, that also impacts it. And then now I've added a mini stroke and then recruitants on top of it. So I'm like, shit, um, this this is a lot. But I just keep, I'm also practicing my gratitude. So I'm also just very happy to be here. And I'm very clear in saying to folks, my word recall is off. So if I can't come up with the word, and you all have been very gracious in helping me, please help me with the word. I know it's there. It is. I will share that it is one of the it is not, and I don't want to be dramatic about it. So let me take this back. It is something that makes me feel uncomfortable when it happens, because it just makes me feel dumb. Um, Except, I mean, I have an excuse. But it still is like when you're in conversation, you just can't think of your word, especially in a conversation with somebody that you don't know. And then you've got to explain, or maybe you don't explain, but you just feel less than intelligent. I don't really like the word dumb. So that's something that I have to work through and that's ego. So that's something that I have to work through personally, to move through. But my whole, so much of this has been, again, the reminder of advocating for yourself. And I have said that in just dealing with this whole experience. I've changed a primary care doctor that I had for maybe 17 years, because I recognized he wasn't advocating for me like he should have been advocating for me. The awareness in the fact that the medical system here is not really built to support the patient. It is a business. It is a corporation for them. The care and concern. I'm not going to say they don't care. I'm not going to say they aren't concerned. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and so the onus of understanding and researching and knowing all of the things goes back to the person that is needing the care, unfortunately. And oftentimes you're not in the position to do all of that work, to know, like, you sit in these appointments, and they explain some stuff, and then they ask, do you have questions? Oftentimes you don't know what you don't know, so you can't ask ask the question. Like, there was no way I could have known anything about recruitants. But as I was explaining what happened to me in my post surgery meeting, and she so quickly knew exactly what was happening to me, in my mind, that type of stuff would be a simple one pager. Here are the things that you might experience, or these are some things that you need to be aware of that you might experience. That would be so simple. The fact that I had major chills, like I could not control my body with the level of chills that I had. And again, my fever was right at the high fever point. That was really downgraded. Like, there was so much opportunity versus them saying this is really minimal, um, to say these are the things that you might expect. Because if you're explaining something to me and you're making it seem like it's minimal, then when I start experiencing major symptoms, I'm thinking something is totally wrong. And so that approach wasn't, in my opinion, the best approach, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing as far as sharing this information. Um, Recruitants for me was big, especially since it impacts women, and it impacts African Americans. And I could probably go to the fact to go to, say, kind of like when you talk about trials and medicine trials and all of those things. And when you learn that the medicine trials are really targeted for white men, and so when you take a medicine that the trial group has been mostly white men and you experience some different reactions to it, that's because they didn't factor us into the trial. And I mean, we all know racism is the crux of society. It also is so much of medical. I mean, we know about, black maternity, black women in maternity, and the loss of life, and um, the fact that we're not heard, our pain isn't um, understood or respected, um, because there's so much racism in the medical system. And so I could go back to say, if recruitance is impacting women mostly and it's impacting African Americans, then maybe that's why it's not more widely shared that as someone who has experienced a stroke, this is something that you might continue to experience, something you need to be aware of. Um, anyway, the thing for me, and hence my share here, is the the necessity of self advocacy. Um, Healthcare, as I'm also navigating this long term disability, this FMLA process, all of the things that you probably pay for years as part of being employed, but you don't necessarily expect to use it. And then when you expect to use it, it's so confusing. Or when you expect to use it, it seems like it is um, benefits that they don't want you to use. They don't make it easy for you to understand the process. And again, I just go back to the advocacy. The unfortunate part is, as I've thought about, like when I'm in these spaces, so many of the people that I see in the spaces and are what I have considered old people. And I was telling this story to a friend of mine, and I was like, I was in the room with all these old people, and his eyebrows were up like, like you're old. So I recognized that. So the old person was in the room with the rest of the old people, but those people are older than me. Um, but I think about the fact that they're older than me, so 10, 15, 20 years. They If they don't have someone advocating for them, if they don't have the wherewithal, like Google isn't natural to them like it is natural to me, or the fact that I'm going to always advocate for myself or stand up for myself might not be something, because that is my nature, might not be something that they're used to do. So they're used to doing. Like our older generations are, I feel like, more accepting of. They said it, the doctor said it, so it's got to be true. Versus, let's do a little bit of research, or let me Google this and see what else I can find out. My point of reference for that is um, maybe 2018 or so. My uncle in his 90s, he suffered a stroke. Went to the hospital. He didn't. It wasn't a major stroke. He went to the hospital, and by the time I got to the hospital, he was in the bed and he was clearly out of his mind. Like he was driving. In his mind, he was driving a bus as he was sitting in his bed, like he was using the sheets, driving like he was driving a bus. And he was not aware of anything that was going on in the room, or the fact that we were even in the room. And so when I got there, my aunt, so my uncle again was in his late 90s. My aunt was a couple of years older than him. So she's 97 or so. And their son, who I'm her power of attorney. So their son is not necessarily as helpful as he could and should be, is the best way to say that. So I'm sitting there trying to understand what's going on. And so I asked them, the doctor wasn't in the room. So I asked them what is happening. And so my aunt says, they say he has dementia. Um, and so he didn't have dementia the day before, the week before. But now he's in the hospital and he's completely out of his mind driving a bus in the hospital bed. And so I said, that's not how dementia works. And so but my aunt and my cousin are sitting there. They have accepted the fact that the doctors say he has dementia. And so when the nurse comes in, I ask, what is going on right now? And so she says, dementia. And I said, no, that is not. You just don't come into the hospital like unless you have some major traumatic brain injury. I can't imagine that that is how dementia happens. Like, and he's fully functioning. He's just not here. He's driving a bus. He sees people. He's totally somewhere else. Um, so I asked them to give me a list of all of his medicines. What is it that you've given him since he's been here? So they give me a list of his medicines. I compare his medicines to what he had been taking prior to arrival in the hospital. I'm able to narrow it down to the medicine for his high blood pressure. And they had changed, he had been taking a medicine for high blood pressure. They had changed his medicine. And as I Googled the medicine that they had given him for his high blood pressure, way down the line, part of it, like one of the side effects, like way down the line, the small print said something about dementia, mimicking dementia, something like that. So I asked them to take him off of that. I said, that's not the medicine he's been taking for his high blood pressure. I see what it's saying here. Please put him back on the medicines that he has been taking. And that medicine comes out of his system and he's back. And he's just, and he has no recollection of the things that he was doing. He doesn't even believe us when we say, oh, you were over there driving this bus and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't believe that happened. And he's back. I come back a day or so later, somebody has accidentally given him this medicine again, and he's gone again. He's doing those same things again. The advocacy piece of that, my aunt, 97, 98 years old, her son not being efficient at all to help them. If I had not had the opportunity to be there to advocate for my uncle, and clearly I'll go off. You all should have notated that he should not have had this medicine. Here you've done it to him again. Get him off of this medicine. Put it in his record that he should never have this medicine again. They take him off. He's back again. Had I not been able to be there for him, they would have left the hospital with him out of his mind, saying it was dementia, knowing. And I said that's not how dementia works. And like I know you all know that's some BS. That's not how dementia works. And they would have left and been okay with saying that he had dementia. And that is just the power of advocacy. Had I not been there, grateful that I could have been there, then they would have had to deal with him in this state of mind that could have easily been fixed by correcting his medicines. So the advocacy, I'm going to like medical advocacy in just life, period. Um, Not taking someone's word for it, especially when it comes to you and something you're doing or something you're dealing with in your health, something that has major impact on your life. Taking the few steps to advocate for yourself or to reach out to someone to ask for help in advocating for you or in researching or asking for a second or a third opinion has become more and more clear to me. Again, My primary care doctor I've had for many years. When I came out of having had the mini stroke, his summary for me was basically like, he agreed with everything that done in the hospital. They had set up several kind of exploratory appointments to talk about the hole in my heart, all of these things. My primary care summary was that I didn't need to do that exploratory stuff. What they had done was enough that I could just take this anticoagulant to ensure I didn't develop blood clots anymore. He told me that it was the heart, to close that hole was a major surgery that was not um, beneficial based on the how major the surgery was versus the benefits of it. All of that was wrong. Um, but had I not done some further research, had I not gone to those exploratory appointments, had I not listened to someone who specializes in the actual the surgery versus my doctor who gave me his opinion, which I assumed it was an informed opinion, only to learn it was not informed at all. Had I just relied on the fact that I've got a 17 plus year relationship with him, um, the rest of my life, I'd just be taking medicines and hoping that everything would be okay, that nothing, blood clot wouldn't form and go through that little hole in my heart. And so it also made me think of, what ways I not, have I taken just his opinion for things and not looked at things a step further? And so I think my long story um, is tying into advocacy, self advocacy from um, even if I go back to my primary care doctor, because as this stuff started happening in my chest before I even had the mini stroke, I went to him and I said something is happening in my heart. I went to him on December the 1st. Something is happening in my heart, and he listened with his stethoscope, told me my heart was fine. I should have pushed then for an echocardiogram. I can't think of the name of it. I could have potentially saved myself from having a mini stroke, because that was absolutely the precursor. That was the warning that something was happening that should not have been happening. But he didn't do any full due diligence, and that's my word that I use all the time, the due diligence. And it's a strange line for us, because this man has gone to medical school. This is what his talents are. This is what he knows. I don't know, so I take his word for it. But at what point should I be doing further investigation? At what point should I be questioning what he says so I can advocate for myself? Um, and I think that is big for the advocacy piece. The self advocacy piece is big for each of us in all aspects of our life. It is required. Um, and so I think that is kind of what I wanted to share. It's what I will keep sharing, because as I keep going through this journey, um, in the back of my head, I now know to question. I haven't always been the person to question authority, because certain generations, and I think I started talking about this, certain generations, older generations, you come in from a place of, this is the authority, so I'm just trusting what they say. They know, and you don't. It's oftentimes seen as disrespectful to challenge or to ask questions of someone that is supposed to be the authority. Absolutely, from a perspective of when you think about older generations and having to deal with racism, there was not the opportunity to question, and challenge authority. So we know some of those people are, those older people are still here and navigating spaces where that is still their mindset, that I don't question. So if we have older um, family members or friends, so keeping that in mind, because that is something that is sorely needed. Because if we're not self-advocating, if we're not advocating for our loved ones, then there's like a strong likelihood that no one is, and that's important, and it's dangerous to not focus on that. Let me see what my comments are saying. My contacts are not acting right again. Hi, Robert. Be safe on your bike today. Hi, Kitty. Hi, Keisha. I'm glad you are here. Thank you, Kitty. Thank you so much. Yes, Kitty. Happy Father's Day to the fathers. Hi, Natasha. Good morning to you. A path to green. Hey there. Thank you, Cami. Thank you so much. Hi, Dominique. Roslyn. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you. Yes. Tracy Unplugged is saying, I'm sending you all my love, peace, and comfort. Thank you so much. I received that. Um, Thank you very much. Hey, Mary, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Good to see you online. Thank you, Rosalind. Mayo is saying breath work may also be helpful to help regulate your heart rate. Absolutely. And I'm gonna thank you for that reminder. Um, no, they absolutely don't care. It healthcare is a business. Um, Anyone can spend 30 seconds with you and know that a lack of intelligence is not a problem that can be associated to you. Thank you so much. I know that is relative to my word recall. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for being so vulnerable with us. This is a lot for anyone to handle. Sending you love and light. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Absolutely. Um, I've Thank you for your transparency and the reminder to stay diligent when educating ourselves about our health. Absolutely. Um, Absolutely. Hi, Terry. It was good to see you. Creative Corner saying thank you for educating us as I'm going into surgery as well. I now know what to look out for. Um, that is important. I think one of the things that I'm adding to my conversation is in with the, when you sit there and they go through the stuff and they, what questions do you have? I think I'm going to start saying, what questions should I be asking? Like you're the expert here. What is it that you haven't discussed, or what should I be asking that I'm just not aware of? Um, Thank you, Mayo. I'm sending Creative Corner, sending you great wishes for your surgery. Knowing and trusting everything will be well for you. Day is saying my niece, a PA, quit a great paying job at a respected hospital network because she said they asked her to lie via omission regarding patients' health. She said they want money. A sister, RN, said the same. Absolutely. Um, Rosalind is saying what you're describing is called medical apartheid. I didn't know there was a name for it, but absolutely. Um, Cheryl is saying it's the drugs these doctors give us that induces illness. They always misdiagnose, and so this is a conversation I have with my daughter. It is the business of healthcare is in making money from illness, and the business of making money from drugs. And I go back to the medicine that I have to take, the anticoagulant, to keep my blood. I think it's sticky so that clots don't form. Um, when I went to Brazil, I was in Brazil supporting a family member who was having a health challenge, and I ran out of my prescription medicine, and I was panicked because I didn't. I'm in a foreign country, and I went to the pharmacy there. A friend who lives in Brazil took me to the pharmacy there, showed the doctor my medicine, and it was something that was available over the counter without a prescription. Because in outside of the U.S., um, the drug, the pharmacy, the drug trade, and I'm not talking about illegal drugs. The drug trade that is the drugs that you get your prescriptions for at the pharmacy. It's not that way outside of the country. It's not the big dollar. Doctors aren't courted by pharmaceutical companies to sell their drugs. And it is absolutely about the money, and it is absolutely about keeping you on drugs to take this drug to do this, and then you take this drug to counteract that drug, and then all of the things. And like when you sit and listen to the commercials about medicines, and then they do the fine print and they talk, this may cause this and this. Like, now you're going to need medicines to offset all of the things that this drug is supposed to fix. And it's just like, that's not the way it should be. Like, their wellness with this, we're supposed to be focused on wellness, health and wellness, and that's not what's factored in. Yes, Dominique. Dominique says that is unbelievable. I feel like U.S. medical professionals are killing us with prescription medicines. Absolutely, absolutely. Rosalind saying that American sick care system plays in the faces of Black people in the worst way. I agree. Um, Terry says you may not know medicine, but you know your body. Always fight for that most times. Doctors don't want to listen to you because they don't want to be bothered. I agree with that. Hi, Erica. Good morning. Um, BD is saying number one is self advocacy. My own self advocacy changed my life dramatically in recent years. Number two is identifying who will advocate for you if you cannot. Absolutely. Oh, Kitty is saying, I love the scarf. Thank you so much. This was an Amazon find. Thank you. K Doja, glad you're doing better. Thank you so much. BD, absolutely. You advocate for yourself in finding someone who will advocate for you if you cannot. Um, Mary saying, our family never leaves the other side in the hospital as much as possible. My mom sat for several hours after surgery on her internal organs, and the morphine was never connected. Luckily, we noticed. And so, two things, Mary, to that point. Absolutely. So, um, what I what happened with me, so part of, I was in, again, this minimally invasive surgery, but I was in quite a bit of pain on my right side. So they go in your artery on the right, go in, I think they go opposite sides. So they were going to work over here on the left side of my heart, and they went in on the right side of my groin, and I think I understand they do the opposites. And so I ended up being very, very sore on my hip. And the soreness came not because of the way they went in. The soreness came, so the very first time, in the after the procedure, and I was just coming to, and I could hear this conversation happening around me, and I could see a woman working to my right, and she pushed something back, and she realized I was bleeding, and I was bleeding a lot. And so she needs to stop. So again, I've been taking blood thinners, and so that bleeding is expected. So she is leaning onto, she's got full body pressure on my hip to stop this bleeding. But she's talking to another nurse because there's a drip that's happening beside me that is supposed to counteract the blood thinners. And it is, I don't know what the name of it, but their conversation, what I gathered from their conversation was this medicine wasn't dripping at the rate that it should have been to properly counteract the blood thinners that I had been given. And so that's why I was bleeding. And so she, like I said, she's got full body pressure on me to stop the bleeding. And then when I go in the recovery room, same thing happens again. So they've taken me over there. And so they're kind of going back and forth. And I can tell that this guy is asserting his authority while this nurse is saying to him, I don't believe you have that dripping at the right rate. I don't know that the drip ever changed because I could tell he was saying that he felt it was right, even though she was saying it wasn't right. And clearly I was bleeding. So then I go in the recovery room and the same thing happens. Nurse pulls back a sheet and I can tell from her face that she went into like emergency mode. I could see she was shocked to see that I was bleeding a lot again. And so she does the same thing, full body press to stop the bleeding at this site on my hip. And so my hip ended up being very painful and like because I had two full bodies pressing on my hip to stop the bleeding. And so that kind of is to your point, Mary, that if no one's in there paying attention, like I'm hearing this whole conversation where she's not necessarily, I don't know if it was like a rank issue, but I could tell she felt like it wasn't dripping at the right rate. And so when we went into the recovery room and I'm bleeding again, she starts telling the nurse then that she'd had this conversation with this guy and she didn't feel like the medicine had been administered properly. Um, if somebody's not paying attention, if you don't have a family member there paying attention, um, the advocacy, just like you said, the morphine was never connected. Is it intentional? Absolutely not. Um, but accidents happen. They have so many patients. Like I heard them have a conversation with a woman who had prostheses, um, prosthetics is what I think I can say that correctly. I heard the nurse say to her, we're going to get you up in a few minutes and have you walk around. And the lady said, well, that's really going to be a miracle because I don't have any legs. And I'm sitting over there thinking, shit, that's awkward. The nurse kept talking and she was like, she said, and so the lady said, that's really going to be a miracle because I don't have any legs. And she said, hopefully my prosthetics are back behind the bed. And so I hear the nurse kept talking and she said, I'm sorry. She said, you're absolutely correct, which obviously she was correct. She said, and yes, they're back behind the bed. Then I heard her later on, the nurse having a conversation with two other people. I couldn't see them, but where each of them had made a similar comment, a similar mistake or something. One of the nurses said he went to do something, pushed the sheets back, and was kind of shocked to realize she didn't have lower body. She didn't have her legs. Why wasn't that big on the paperwork? Like that's important to know. And then you put somebody in an uncomfortable position to have to explain to you, no, I can't walk around because I don't have legs. um Again, not wanting to not care, but because they see so many patients there, they've got so much going on, they can't pay attention to all of the details and know all of the things. But that's important. In a mistake or something like that, like what you're saying, Mary, could mean, that cause harm to someone, could cause, loss of life. Those are the things that in advocating we have to advocate for others. We have to advocate for ourselves. um the breath work, thank you for sharing that. That is one of the things. So this past week I made myself sit down. The entire week I've not done, I've been kind of very quiet in one, taking care of myself and focused. Like one of the things that I've learned and focused on in heart issues, it is just not. So there was really no, like I don't have high blood pressure. My cholesterol is managed. So there was no real reason to point to why I had a stroke other than a blood clot formed. And so we are doing some additional work to understand my body in blood clots, but um, there was no real reason as to why I had a stroke. Um, again, it was like the perfect storm of this blood clot in this hole that I have in my heart that I've had for however old I am. I think I'm 56. I think I'm 56. I think I'll be 57. Um, other than a blood clot forming and going through this hole that I've had in my heart for all of the years that I've been here living. And so it's never been an issue until it was kind of activated by stress, the stress of a job, which was that fluttering that was happening. So I kind of have said this like I feel like it was like a dormant volcano in the stress of this job. And I knew the job was stressful, kind of activated um, this hole into becoming a factor. So in this journey, as I'm studying and learning about heart stuff, you have to consider that it's not just, say, foods or um, when you think about things that can impact your health, the health of your heart, you also have to think about emotional things, and heartache, emotional heartache, um, and stress, obviously stress, but like emotional heartache also impacts the physical health of your heart. And so, one of the things that I have become more focused on is that I have to guard my heart. Like there's the scripture that talks about guarding your heart. People always talk about guarding your heart, but I have even more reason to guard my heart, from an emotional standpoint. And I always say that I lead with my heart. I have a big heart. I want to do all of the things and help all of the people. And I now have to go into self preservation mode to guard my health, guard my heart. So the emotional piece of that is a major factor for me. And so this week I've been really focused on just being still and spending time with self. And um, Stephanie Perry, I saw a short Stephanie had the other day where she was talking about taking a sabbatical and the time and how valuable her time of a sabbatical was in getting to know who she was. And she was saying, like, you don't, oftentimes we don't know ourselves outside of project manager Jewel or product manager Jewel or mommy Jewel, having been a mother. Like, though, these titles, these jobs, these things, that these functions that we perform, but you don't really know yourself outside of having worked at this job for 20 years. Who are you outside of that job? And when I said I worked to sit still this week, it was actually a challenge for me because I realized I'm not used to sitting still. I'm used to doing. I'm used to, if I'm sitting down, there's something that needs to be done. And I remember, I used to years ago take the time to really sit and read a book, um, and I've recognized over the last few years I haven't taken that time. Like, I've sometimes feel like if I'm sitting still and I'm sitting idle, then I'm not being productive. There's something I should be doing, and that's not a good thing to feel like you have to be. Um, to doing something all the time. So I have forced myself to sit this week, and it really has been forcing myself, like not not responding to business emails, and really, and not thinking through, like, the other piece that I recognize is I've been on leave since the stroke happened end of December, but I went from stressful job to the stress of trying to figure out what the medical piece of it, and then also the stress of trying to figure out what's next. How do I fund myself? Like, what does it look like from an income perspective if I'm not working? how do I grow my business? How do I do all these things? And I'm not necessarily taking any of the time to sit and to rest and to work on my healing. And so that is a lot of what I've done this week, and also figuring out how I factor that in my go forward. Working on um, what I felt like reclaiming my joy. And I've started like the breath work. I do meditate, and when I said that, the natural, trying to regulate my heartbeat, the natural methods of doing that, it did include breath work and breathing and meditation, because I do know that impacts your heart rate as well. And so part of my week was getting recentered in my gratitude practice. And I hadn't made the connection, because I was like, okay, I recognize that I've not been in a place of joy lately, because I've been kind of focused on all of the things, and my joy is missing, and I hadn't connected that until this morning. My meditation was talking about how you don't get to joy, you get to gratitude, and you work on your gratitude, and then as you're working on your gratitude, then your joy comes. And that made sense to me. But I'd already started in my mind thinking I've got to work hard on my gratitude process. But I didn't make the connection in that once I get recentered on my gratitude, my gratitude focus, then that joy is going to come in naturally. And so, that is the piece of of what I've been doing. So in making that a daily process, that gratitude process, focusing on who I am outside of, um, outside of my tiny house work, outside of, the corporate person that I've been for so many years, in just spending and getting that time with myself. Like, one of the things I focused on this week was, I've gone into the mode of I need a new location for my house. And I've started, riding around looking for locations, and I have an ad on Craigslist because I want to, from a safety perspective, I want to, and this is not like I don't have safety issues, racism. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about I am very far out in a rural area, and so access to, um, like Uber, or access to, meal delivery, or access to some of the things that we now just kind of take for granted in urban spaces. I don't have access to that. Like, I guess maybe 3 weeks ago, I had a flat tire, and it took forever to find someone who would come out to this area to service a flat tire. Even as I have, roadside assistance, they couldn't assist me because there was nobody in this area. And so I want to be closer into the city, so that that's not a challenge, because that is not the ease of life that I want. But I realized, as I've gone into, okay, I need to move my house, I left my place of gratitude in, like, I'm just moving forward into what's next. These are the things that have to be done, where I realized I need to center and focus on my practice of gratitude, and how thankful I am for this location, how thankful I am for my home, because my tiny house is allowing me to not be majorly stressed out in this transition of I'm not working, medical leave, the reduced, long-term disability, and what that looks like from an income perspective, and trying to grow my business. If I wasn't in my home, this would be a very much stressful process if I had, a mortgage and major bills to deal with. So trying to stay in the present, even though there are things that I have to do to look forward for the future. And I think, one of the things that I have wanted to, as I share my journey and the things that are happening, one of the things that I hope that other people are taking from this is, um, setting yourself up in a place so that you, like years ago when I built my home and designed this tiny house, my thought was in this tiny house is my retirement plan. This is how I get to liberation. But that was more of the abstract thought of it, and now we're like at real practical application, and it is gratefully still being that. But do as you're thinking of your life and your journey, do you have a plan in place for what that looks like for like a your own personal safety net? Um, Finances. My intent was to limp along to because I knew my job was stressing me out, so I wanted to get to a year and take a stress leave. My intention had been to to get to that year and be saving my money along the way, um, to have that as a cushion, and that plan didn't go into effect like I had envisioned it. The plan happened around me, but again, the thing that is allowing me to not be majorly stressed out is the fact that my home doesn't require what a conventional home would require as far as my finances. I own this home. Nobody can take this home from me. And so all of this, I guess, kind of comes full circle, even with advocacy. Like, are you advocating for yourself in designing that lifestyle so that you have the things in place and the people in place? And I'm working on the people in place to support you as things come up, because I had no idea this was going to happen, and so, but I kind of along the way had weaved together some of a cushion and some of a plan to help support in this journey. So um, tiny houses aren't for everybody, um, obviously, but part of I think what this conversation has to be as we're thinking about society, as we're thinking about where we are now, as a people, as a community, thinking about, the cliche thought, less is more. Um, it is. Less is more in navigating stressful experiences, less is more in trying to figure out what's the next. Um, and I think the less is more doesn't necessarily have to be a tiny house. It can be um, downsizing from something that is overwhelming and stressful, um, to something that is manageable. Again, it doesn't have to be a tiny house. Less is more in um, the conversation I've had previously with my mom, just in like from a paperwork perspective, do you have an idea of what is going on in your life overall? Do you have stuff in a place that is manageable versus things and situations that are overwhelming that need to be addressed, where you could kind of pare things down to a more manageable space. And so I would encourage anybody to and everybody to think through that. Mary saying, thanks for catching me up. I'm so sorry. That's traumatic. Coming out of surgery, you're already feeling vulnerable and under anesthesia. Agreed that prosthetics not being written bigger on the chart. Like, that was major. Like, how do you not already know that this woman can't get up and walk around the room? Like, how is that not known? Um, in most cases, we need to trust the body that God gave us more than the manipulation from doctors to peddle their drugs. I agree with that 100%. Habab is saying the nurse to patient ratio is ridiculously high. From my understanding, if the patient's initial admissions stats aren't documented correctly, it's very easy to miss critical patient information. Um, I felt so like I wondered for the woman who had to explain I can't walk around the room, how often that happens to her, and how disconcerting that must be, that the people that are responsible for your care don't know something really important about you that they should know. Um, so yeah, that was key to who she is, and they missed that, and I just wondered how that made her feel, and I felt sad that they didn't know that about her. Um, Terry is saying, my new doctor's office was shocked when I asked for a copy of the test they had done for my physical. They were, you want a copy? Folks didn't take charge of their health. Yes, being still is healthy. Um, I think that it's that trusting that your doctor is has your best interest at heart. But you got to also know, like, you should absolutely be asking for the test from the physical. Have they even read them? Is there something I need to follow up on? I want to have a conversation with my doctor as we're reviewing these together. If I don't ask for a copy of it, how do I even know what we're talking about, what we're looking for? How do I know year after year whether things are improving or declining, and things that I need to be aware of? Like, it's that's basic advocacy 101. Absolutely. And they should not have been surprised. Like, it's disappointing that more people aren't asking for that. Mayor saying it's difficult on the healthcare staff if their workload is unreasonable. I agree 100%, and I there was no not placing blame anywhere. I know that they are overworked and understaffed. Um, and just in riding around Charlotte, there's so many more buildings being built, and a large portion of the buildings being built are healthcare facilities. And so to not and again, it's big business to not properly staff and to give the resources to the people that are charged with caring for people, is just negligent. um, May is saying we are often on autopilot. Absolutely. And that is where I am trying, like trying to be, not be on autopilot, and to be focused more on the present and what's going on, and listening, and how am I feeling, all of those things that society doesn't encourage. Those are the things that I want to do. And I think for me, the piece of it that I feel like during the pandemic, everybody got this. Like, during quarantine, everybody got this. Um, Businesses were even saying the right thing, like caring for people and having to care for your family, and focused on the things that were important in being able to stay home and all of that stuff. And then now we're back, and society is back, and businesses are back in requiring you to come into the office, and they've forgotten all of those things that they talked about, um, that were important, and things that we need to focus on for ourselves and for our families, and to be well. And I think that is really sad, but that oftentimes you don't start getting it, or you don't start paying attention until there's a health crisis that makes you have to sit down, and makes you have to focus. And sometimes that health crisis is so major that that not that it's too late, but it is major when the preventative options, or the warning signs were there, if we had just kind of been a little slower and not on that autopilot. Kitty is saying, thank you for sharing your personal experience and being truly transparent to educate and empower your community. May God continue to bless and cover your mind, body, and spirit. Thank you, Kitty. Thank you. Um, yes, civilization. Mary, I forgot. Um, I'm trying. That's that's all I got. Like I do want. I do. My friends are um my the cat community that lives out here. Those are my friends. Um, and I just that's all I have when I think about like civilization, like modern day civilization. I want to have some of the benefits of modern day civilization. Um, can I blog my house site search? Maybe. I'm still trying to do covertly. So we'll see. Um, Gratitude for the work progress you made for the tiny house movement in your stunning home in Skansville. Thank you, Mary. Um, Aflac may be something you want to consider since you're a single woman. Let me write down Aflac because I've heard that Teresa's not here today. Teresa has mentioned Aflac several times, and I feel like I'm missing something that I should be um, considering. So let me write that down. It's not. That's a okay. Um, Jesus, I have pulled out several highlighters. None of them are going to write. Okay, so Aflac. Let me write that down. Because when something keeps showing up, I know I need to pay attention. So thank you for that. I'm going to look into that. Um, Herbs for strokes. Master Ward, Black Cohosh, Hyssop. Okay, let me do a screenshot of that. Thank you very much, Cheryl. So I can look at those later. Thank you. Um, I'll let y'all know about blogging the house site search. Um, Thank you, Cheryl, for that list. Kitty is saying, as patients, we have every right to ask for documentation regarding our health, period. Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that, so a lot of the folks now have portals that you can log into and keep up with all of the things and communicate with the doctor. So I would encourage people to take advantage of that because um, one of the things that has happened with me, like with the atrium, atrium is the system, one of the systems here in my area. And all the doctors use this portal. And one of the things I had to say to the doctor is like, if you all are all using this portal, it's supposed to be a way for you all to also know what the other doctor is doing and what the other doctor is saying. And it should not be like a disjointed approach to my healthcare, which is what I felt like I was receiving. And so I just had to have this advocacy conversation for myself. Like, I need my primary care doctor to be the person who is looking at this holistically and is aware of everything that is happening so that you can, under your umbrella, ensure that it is all working together for, like, this is a piece of my bigger puzzle. And I don't feel like that was happening until I had to call it out. And she was like, you're right to be frustrated. And it's like, I don't want to have to get too frustrated to have this conversation basically to tell you how to do your job. Like, that's not, I don't want to get there. I want this to work like I imagine it's supposed to. Somebody should be looking at what's happening to me holistically to ensure the pieces are all going together. um Kelly is saying, absolutely, I keep copies of all medical work done, not only for myself but also so if I change doctors, they are aware of past procedures, tests, and checkups. Absolutely. Erica is saying they should give you test results. You shouldn't have to ask. Absolutely right. Habab is saying Western medicine treats symptoms. They are not trained to to cure. Absolutely. Um, Kay is saying we are human beings and not human doings. Learning how to just be in the moment. Let gratitude open the door to overtake you with goodness. Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. Um, Miss BD Jewel, please remember that empaths must protect your emotional heart at a whole different intensity while not stressing about it. Um, that's very true. Being an empath, I don't think I understood um, until I recognized that I was an empath, that my approach to feelings and life was different from most people. And that has been an absolute lesson, a learning lesson for me in how I have to protect my heart and how I have to be careful not to consume other things that really aren't my things, but because I am an empath, I take them to heart, and take them to heart literally. So, absolutely. Thank you. I agree with that 100%. Very welcome, Alexandra. Thank you for being here. Um, Kay is saying, no fret for tomorrow. It's already taken care of. Just spend time seeing your life in the way you desire, and it shall all come to pass. I agree with that 100%. I agree. Mary, my cat family. Mary's asking, what were your signs you ignored? Um, I honestly won't say I ignored the signs. Um, but my major sign was the fluttering that started happening in my chest. I knew my job was very stressful. Um, and for me, it was disappointing that I found myself in this stressful situation. The stressful jobs for me were a thing of the past. Like the stressful jobs were when I was younger and in a position where I've got bills, I've got a child to feed, I've got a mortgage, and I can't afford to lose a job because I've got so much riding on it and I wasn't making a lot of money. That to me was like the thing of the past because I was designing my life differently. So to land in, obviously this job, interviewing, the description, nothing prepared me for what the actual environment was, um, manager was, workload was. And so um, I knew it was stressful. When I started having this fluttering in my chest, I knew it was only happening during my work day. It didn't happen on the weekend. So I knew it was absolutely relative to the job. I knew it was stress relative to the job. I started talking to a counselor, and talking through that and working through breathing exercises, to try to calm myself down, not knowing, like I knew the stress, but not knowing something physical was happening to my heart. And then as it continued and kind of, like I said, intensified, I had the conversation with my doctor on December 1st that something was happening in my chest. Not not knowing at the time that I had the hole in my heart, and not knowing at the time that what that impact would be, with a blood clot forming. So I won't necessarily say I ignored any of the signs. Like my plan, I wasn't yet a year at my job, so my plan that I'd already spoken to my primary care doctor about, as well as my therapist, was once I get to a year, then I am going to take a stress leave because I had also been looking for a job. Um, the miss for me is not in, like what I was saying, the advocacy. When I spoke to my doctor, I should have advocated for further investigation. Something is happening in my chest. Something is happening, that is bigger than you listening to my heart with a stethoscope. There's no way he could have determined what was happening through a stethoscope. And so that was my miss, because I was putting my plan into place to remove myself from the stress, because I knew it was having a negative impact on my body. Just didn't know all of the ins and outs of what was happening. Kay is saying the battle we are in is for your mind. Meditation is a must. Living gratefulness in your path will be made for you. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Um, Kay is saying, I have copies of all written reports, x rays, MRIs, scans, and blood work, and have them in two large 5-inch binders in chronological order by procedure, although doctors have them in the portals. Very smart. Absolutely. Um, Kelly is saying, I've been more of a silent listener today. I do want to say thank you for being open about your health journey. It has really pushed me to be better about advocating for myself. Welcome, Kelly. Welcome to the community. I'm glad you got that out of, of this conversation. Sundays is our time to get together. I do have guests. I will have a guest next Sunday. So please come back. I will be back on some tiny house. What's your questions? I'm going to talk about financing. I'm going to share some of the upcoming events I have planned that will be available, some workshops that are coming up. So please do join us. The advocacy piece of it, not just, again, not just in healthcare, in advocating for yourself overall. If you're and seeing your bigger picture, like not staying in situations that can um, cause you harm, mental, physical, emotional harm, because that impacts your body. Um, Advocating for yourself so that you're thinking about what is my freedom plan? What is my liberation plan? Because to operate the way society would have us operate on a daily is not sustainable. It is not healthy for us as individuals. As I think through that, I always think about other countries that don't operate at this pace that we operate. And oftentimes, from the U.S. perspective, we look down on those countries because we feel like they're not as advanced, and not me. Um, they're not as advanced. They don't have this. They don't have the houses. They don't have all of this, but they have their health. They have access to good food. They have time with family. One of the things as I travel, and you get out and you see folks in the parks or some of these places that on Sunday they close off specific areas to cars, and it is for walking and for roller skating, for bike riding. You'll see families picnicking in the park. You'll pass parks and you'll see people just laying in the park reading a book, because their priorities are often different. Where we would say they don't have the luxuries that we're used to, but they have a lot in happiness, um, and and focused on the priorities. And so I I'm advocating for that for all of us, that we figure out what that looks like before it becomes required, or before you have a health challenge where you have to figure out what that looks like. Advocating for yourself in just all aspects of your life. Yeah. Mary saying, that's the hardest type of advocacy to getting your doctors to believe you that there may be something more. Absolutely. And it shouldn't be that difficult. If I'm telling you something is happening, you should be listening to me, which is not how it works, and which is why you have to just be so forceful in your advocacy, because at the end of the day, you're taking care of you, you're looking out for you. And so don't just stop at the one no, or the don't just take the first word for it. All right, good people. It is 1:30. I hope that I have I did have some notes of some of the stuff I wanted to talk about. I hope I thank you all for being here on Sundays with me always. I do hope that while it wasn't tiny house related, I do hope that it was tiny house related. Because I can tie all of this back to simplicity, and like I was saying, less is more. Just even, theoretically, if we're not just talking about the physical tiny house, but so much of the journey of downsizing and focusing on what's important. So I hope that that has been something that um, you're able to take from this as well in some practical life application or some learnings for you. No, thank you, May. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. All right, good people. Next Sunday, I do have a guest, so we'll be in conversations on intimate spaces. My guest next week is developing a tiny house community outside of Charlotte, Poplar Creek. So we'll be talking about their community and their journey to developing the community and some of their plans. So that will be helpful to some of you all. And thank you, Mary. Thank you. It was good to have you here in the community. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Dominique. Um, I'm always grateful for my community. I thank you for the grace. Yes, Dave. Please hit the like button, share all of the things. When you share the videos, my videos, or like them, then YouTube feels like it's some good information, and they'll pay attention to it. So that helps me grow my channel as well, and ultimately can do some financial good. So hi Noah, thank you very much. Absolutely, advocating for ourselves is always a part of the tiny house journey. Absolutely. So join me next Sunday if you can, and for our guests. Thank you for being here on Sundays with me. And I hope everybody has a great week. Remember to focus on yourself and focus on your gratitude and focus on being present, and all of those things. And as I'm saying that, these are the reminders that I have for myself as well. Um, Thank you so much, WLJ. I appreciate that. Um, so, yeah, we'll be back next Sunday. Take care. Join us next Sunday. Like, share, subscribe, turn on the notifications so that you'll know when content is live. Links are available in the video description to schedule with me for consultations, all of those things. Thank y'all, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Um, Take care. So having another person go with you to appointments is helpful because sometimes a response you get to a question might throw you off your game. I agree with that for sure. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Or recording the conversation if that's not possible so that you can replay what was heard. Those are some of the things. So thank you for sharing that as well. Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there. Happy Juneteenth. All of those things. Take care, everybody.